Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, CEO and founder of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. And welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have a special guest, Steve Kidd, owner of Thriving Bestsellers. Steve Kidd, a multi-talented powerhouse whose life's mission is to elevate the voices of exceptional individuals with heart-driven passions. He is a best-selling author, entrepreneurial force, business coach, and radio show host who has dedicated his life to helping aspiring writers and authors bring their message to the world and achieve bestseller status. With his unique combination of heart and vision, Steve has helped thousands of people share their stories, leaving a lasting impact on millions. He is known for his big heart and unparalleled ability to see the potential in others, guiding them on their journey to success. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Mr. Steve Kidd. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm excited to have you on. I always love talking to fellow authors and fellow podcasters as well, and coaches. So it's an exciting evening to have you on, and being that this is the theme for the time frame that I'm interviewing, is I'm really trying to, encourage and, of course, and let other people know with the world about becoming an author and how to elevate those voices that we do have, whether it is being an author or whether it's about being a podcast host or however people find their journey and going down that journey. So can't wait to hear your story, how you got started and how you're helping those people move forward with their journey. So before we do get started though, Steve, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about who Steve Kidd is?
Well, and the bio made me feel so good about myself. I almost feel like I can't do it justice, but I am Steve Kidd. I'm a third-generation minister, an international best-selling author of 21 books and counting, and I have the privilege of working with authors. Ultimately, I'm a marketing company with a strong publishing division. We've helped, somewhere north of 4,000, almost 5,000 now, authors in the writing, publishing, marketing their books to bestseller and beyond, everything beyond that. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, the cool part about that is that in just pretty much the day one or the first couple of days that we've tracked, those books have literally reached millions of people. And that is just so cool to get to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I guess really if you had to say, what do I really do? I'm a deeply heart-centered empath who loves to help people find what's their next. In fact, I always say what you may discover is that it's not that your cloud has silver linings, mm-hmm. but that actually it's silver covered in cotton candy.
Oh, love that. That is very sweet. And that is true. It's true. But the thing that just blew my mind was the amount of people that you have worked with and assisting them of finding their voice and becoming that author. Because, it's the number one question I always get is, well, how do you become an author? and my biggest answer is, well, what are you writing? And that's usually where that story begins. And a lot of people feel like they have to have all these other attributes and things behind them in order to realize that they can share their voice in so many different ways, and they don't know who they're going to touch. I think their biggest concern is always, well, it's only going to be my family, or nobody really going to care about what I'm going to say. And we have all realized that is true, surely not the truth, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But what I always tell people in that case is, if your book only reached one person, mm-hmm. if it made the difference in one person's life, that is more than enough.
Exactly. I agree. Absolutely agree. So tell the listeners how you decided to go down this journey, and how many years have you actually been an author? Because you've obviously have written many, many books, and you're still counting and still moving forward. But what made you decide to get into this?
Well, I'm a high creative. I've been, creating things my whole life. trying to write books since I was even a kid. And then in 2007, I helped my then wife and my second youngest daughter. They had been blogging about the mother-daughter trip they took, actually to go to the locations for the Twilight movie, if you remember the original Twilight movie.
Yes.
And they had visited all of both the filming locations as well as the designated locations in the actual city of Forks. And I helped them put that together into book form and publish it out for them. That book actually at one point was the #1 best-selling movie-related travel guide on Amazon. Wow. And it was from there that I learned the power of bestsellers. As far as my own personal books, somewhere in that general same time frame, give or take a year or two, I was actually writing the typical opt-in free giveaway that we do for people. Give us your email address and I'll give you this little thing. And I started writing it and got really inspired and stayed up all night and a couple other days. And by the time I was done, I was at about 110 pages. Wow. So a little bit more than a free giveaway. I actually went to my oldest mentor, Dr. Donald Joy, and he both wrote the foreword as well as helped me, really edit it and hone in the content. And that was my first book. It was way too big, had way too much in it, like all of us do. And I actually then re-released that book because it's called 10 Things That You Have to Have or That You Must Have to Have in Life and Business. And I re-released it as a 10-book series, taking each one of those one point at a time. So they were manageable and palatable for people versus, dumping everything in my brain on them all at once.
Right. So here it goes. Now figure it out, right? So yeah, that happens. And I think that's amazing how as authors, we all have our different way of how we dive into our writing. And I'm kind of that same person. Once I get started, it's hard to stop. It's like you want everything out of your head on that page. Now, are you the traditional that likes to write everything out, or do you like to, type it, or are you doing some of the new stuff where people are using the voice, and letting it all do the work itself, the voice type recording?
That first book I did actually type it out. I do not recommend that to anybody. Everybody I know that's ever tried to type or handwrite their book takes months, years, decades to be able to get their book out. I believe very strongly that everybody needs to be an author. Very few people are actually writers. And I would say that even of myself, even with all of the stuff that I've written. I do most definitely do it all via recording. I suggest to people that aren't really familiar with it to actually even more so have somebody interview them and walk them through that so that because when we're asked questions about that thing that we're really passionate about, it's really easy for us to answer and even be articulate with the answer to a question on something that we really care about. And so that's the best way to get all the content out. And then there is really amazing story development editors and grammar people and stuff like that can help you the rest of the way down the road.
Exactly. Yeah. So what other guidance, I guess, do you provide for somebody who's new, like I said, really wants to be an author, but they just can't decide how they really want to start it? Or if they have started it, where does it really all come together? Because, as authors, a lot of times we just, like I said, we can write and then we don't really realize what we have until it's done. So kind of, I guess, give us some insight about what's your thought process when we're talking about being an author and writing and how that all and the pieces start to come together.
Right. So, first we always start off with a strategy session. Who is the book for? What's, and really identifying that. I mean, the best thing you can do is really narrow that down so that you're writing the book to a single person. Because then you're really specific in all your examples and all the things you're talking about, rather than trying to write something for everybody. When we try to talk to everybody, we end up talking to nobody. So being really specific and then identifying from that specific person, what is their greatest need and what of what you do and who you are in the world do you have that will help them be able to just make just a small step in their life? What is the next step? when we know that person, what's the step next? And if there's a step after that, which there always is in all of our lives, that's book 2. Let's just give them something really simple they can do now. So that's where we start. I do have a series of worksheets that I provide to all my clients that kind of help them hone in on that a little deeper. And then I do the interviews with the people myself personally, because I can kind of help draw them out and help them focus that. And my favorite authors, honestly, to work with are the ones who know they'd like to write a book, but they try to talk me out of doing the writing session because they just don't feel like they're ready. And, when a person is just totally lost, that's when some of the most magic of gold comes out, just by us talking and them feeling like they're just rambling is where the real gold is.
Exactly. I agree with that. Yeah, because I found that, working with people, like I said, when you can communicate with them, and I think too, when they're more open-minded about what it is that they're trying to convey, and you can kind of help them, get that thought and process together so that they realize like, oh my goodness, I really do have something that is of value to me as well as it can be to other people. But I love what you said earlier about the fact that it's not about how many thousands of people that you hit. It's about that one person that can take it all in and really truly connect with you, because that's usually what happens, is that there's always those one or two people or more eventually that will connect because they understand that they're on that same similar journey. And then by reading your story and understanding what that story is about is what takes them to the next step of elevation. So you talk a lot about elevating. What does it mean to be elevated, and how do you see that in a person when you're talking to them?
Well, I think a lot of times we try too hard to be elevated. And we need to really understand that for a person in the desert drowning, or dying of thirst, the smallest drip of dirty water is literally life for them. I'll give you a perfect example from my own personal life. My youngest daughter was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. Now let me skip to the end of that story and tell you she's married. She's doing wonderfully. She's in total remission. She's okay. Okay. I always skip ahead because if not, people won't listen because they're worried about my daughter. But when she was in the hospital, the people that were the most helpful to us were the other parents who weren't where I am now, where, it's like, hey, yeah, she came totally through. But it were the parents who were 3 months, 6 months, maybe at the most ahead of in the journey, that could be really vulnerable and just say, today really sucked, and we thought we were going to lose her today. And here's what we have come through, here's the horrible thing that the doctor said. And it's in that I always use the phrase, I got it from a coach that I used to work with. It's that being vulnerable and valuable that we really elevate what we're doing, if you want to go back to that word, because it's in that genuine open honesty that people can both see themselves as well as see, hey, there's hope and here's a person who can help me.
Exactly. And you're right. The people utilize the word elevate in so many different fashions and forms, but everybody's so busy worrying about the word being connected to success. And I think that's where sometimes you can lose that authentic side of yourself and being just who you are, because you're so worried about connecting those dots. And for me, when I look at it in that perspective, I always think about it's where people reverse it, where they're chasing the money and worrying about that before they're worried about the real purpose of why they're doing what they're doing. What is your thought process on that as well?
I actually heard this the first time from Lisa Nichols. So again, it's not mine, but I remember the first time she said it, I was sitting in a small group that she was teaching. And she looked at the room and she said, you have to understand, the message that's inside of you, it's not about you. And that was like a dagger through my heart. Even though I've had done a lot of things in my life and shared a lot, to really have somebody say it that specifically really drove home to me. And that's really the truth is we get so hung up on all of those things about building our kingdom, elevating ourselves, all those kind of things, when the truth of the matter is that thing inside of you is only as good as you allow it to flow through you and out of you and to the person who needs that information.
Yes. Yes. That is absolutely very well said, because I'm sitting there thinking that is the truth. We kind of get caught up into that realm. And I think a big part of it is because of what people see versus what they're actually feeling. And so then once you do start to feel and you start to connect and trust the journey that you're really on, I think it really truly does become so much more of an elevation, if you use it in that terms, that it's so enlightening, because you're really truly touching, it's not you're touching the people who need to definitely hear your story, understand your story, and know that connection is what keeps you, in my opinion, keeps me sane, is realizing that, because we all have stories, and a lot of times some of those stories are harder to communicate about and wanting people to hear. But what I have learned in my journey of the things that I have been through, that being able to talk about it and connect with others and telling those stories and having those teaching moments has been more enlightening for me. And I think that's what helps those who are considering and thinking about being an author. And what do you have, or what's your thought process too about if they decide, hey, I don't want to write it down, but I just want to talk about it? How about that podcast? Because you are obviously a podcast host as well, and you have your own show. What is your thought process on that?
Oh, I love doing that. In fact, the system was originally built back when the marketing company, we were more of a traditional digital marketing company. And because I knew that for the multi-million-dollar clients that I was working with, if they weren't a best-selling author, I couldn't maximize their marketing potential. I had to have them not just as an author, but as a bestseller. And I would take signature talks and things like that they did and just literally make a book for them. They'd show up to their website and be like, when did I write a book, let alone when did it become a bestseller?
Right.
I needed that to market them. So my whole system is based on that concept. So when I talk to podcasters, they're just perfect because they either already have in the can, as we say, a whole bunch of already done segments that can be used and the content's already spoken out and already there, or we can have a strategy session and we can pre-plan the next 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever approximately interviews they're going to do, and specifically get them the guests and ask the questions and have the conversations, or if they don't have a guest, if they're just talking themselves, share that content. And then that totally gives us everything we need, and, there's some development to turn it from spoken word to written word, but, that's what my staff is here to do.
Right. And that's actually a very excellent idea. You don't really think about it, like I said, but a lot of times the people just feel so much more comfortable being able just to communicate, and then not realizing that what they're communicating can absolutely be turned into something where people can actually read and learn from and start to feel that vision and that understanding of what those spoken words are that you're just talking about. So you just mentioned something that to me is important to chit chat about for a second. And that's about having either a staff, and obviously a lot of people don't have a staff in order to, prepare to edit their materials, to market their materials. And I have found that working with the clients, that it's the writing part, it seems to be easy, but once you get the book done and get it out there, it's that marketing piece. So talk a little bit about how that process works for you guys.
Yeah. So, marketing is everything and everything's marketing, but, the process really is like this. So you speak out the content, and whether it's you do like I do now when I'm writing my own books and you just jump on a Zoom by yourself, or you have somebody interview you, or you take in the can done episodes of podcasts, what's going to happen from there is the audio and the transcript is going to go to what I call a story development editor. That person is going to take and arrange that content so that it flows the best from beginning to end, so that it makes sense, and so that we know what's there. They're also going to identify where are the holes. I'll give you a perfect example from one of the books I was writing. In the spoken, I just said, hey, we were talking about XYZ, and I went right on. Mm-hmm. And for me, it had been maybe 5 minutes since I had said XYZ. So right. I totally knew what I was talking about. But the story development editor came in and said, well, you have to understand, even though this is only 2, maybe 3 pages away at the most, mm-hmm. this could be 2, 3 months, a year, whatever. They may not remember that thing, or they may not have been as focused on that particular page, and they may not remember that. So we don't have to go into the full detail of it, but we have to give them more than just remember when we were talking about. We have to kind of spur their memory, right. And that's some of the kind of things we do in writing. There's also places like, I always use the story, you were telling us about Aunt Jan, and then you never finished telling us what the heck happened to Aunt Jan. We're dying to know, right, is Aunt Jan okay, Mm-hmm. And so, that's what a story development, they make all the comments and stuff like that. And then from there, you either are going to write in, because there's just a sentence or two to explain it, or, myself or my staff will get on another Zoom call with you, and you can, mm-hmm. That's what I did actually just previously to this interview, as I was on with an author who we just needed him to tell us a couple more stories. And I just asked him, hey, tell me about blah, blah, blah. And then he talked, and then, and we went from there. And then that gives us what we need to fill in those holes, so that we have a document that flows from the beginning to end. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we can have it to go to the grammar people who love looking and making sure commas are in the right place and that
right.
kind of thing.
Right. Right. And that's a great concept. So you guys are actually a full service publishing company. So do you provide or offer those individuals who like to do self-publishing or the hybrid type publishing? What is your thoughts on that?
So I focus completely on what would be classified as self-publishing. Okay. The reason being is because, if you go with a traditional publisher owns mm-hmm. your content. Flat right. out. I don't care. Yep. Lisa Nichols' last book, HarperCollins owns it. She had to redo mm-hmm. her whole entire course that she had created for it because HarperCollins said, no, you can't use our content for your course. Okay, that's yep. traditional publishing. Exactly. Hybrid publishers with all of the right intentions, and I please hear me, I'm not trying to diss anybody, mm-hmm. But what they'll do is once the book is all ready, they will take their account, in other words, their email address, mm-hmm. and they will log in on your behalf to Amazon and upload it into an account that is underneath of the management of their email address. Well, what that means is as far as Amazon's concerned, they're the owners of your book. They're who has the contractual relationship with Amazon. Mm-hmm. They're who's Amazon's paying. And, the truth of the matter is author is a form field, with mm-hmm. the exception of claiming you are Oprah Winfrey, which they would flag. But, short of names like that, mm-hmm. you can have a total pen name and make up what your name was and put it in the field, and Amazon isn't going to check and they don't care. The problem with that is that A, if you don't want to work with that hybrid publisher anymore, or B, mm-hmm. as happens so often, they go out of business, mm-hmm. You then have to go through the very arduous task of proving to Amazon you're the one who actually wrote the book, and right. Mm-hmm. and all of that kind of thing. And sometimes that doesn't even work. So we absolutely always recommend to our people, you want to own the book, meaning that it's your email address, an mm-hmm. email address you own, logs in Amazon. It's your bank account that the money's going to. Right. We can log in on your behalf and help you out. And there's some best practices that we teach people in on that. Mm-hmm. But, at the end of the day, you're the total owner of it, and you have full control over it.
Right. And I like that. And I thank you for, clarifying that and bringing that up, because I think it's important that people understand. And even though, we can talk about this all day, and sometimes people are hearing you, but they're hearing that selective hearing. So, it's like they right. don't really truly understand that there is a huge difference. And, sometimes you can, even though in my courses I provide actually in writing, explaining there's a difference between the traditional publishing, the self-publishing, and the hybrid. But, obviously it's everybody has a right to choose what they feel is best for them. And for most people, it's usually about time. Well, I don't have the time to do this, or I don't have the time to do that, or I need somebody to do this piece, and they just want to write. I get that. But you're right. In order to have 100% control, you have to self-publish it. Like I said, that's where that your money is going to come directly to you, all of those things. And that's important for people to realize that they can have the control, but at the same time, if they don't have that time, there are definitely enough services out here that can provide what they need in order to get them over that hump. So real quickly, I know, gosh, this time is going by like really fast, but tell us a little bit more about your podcast show, please.
So it's actually technically a radio show. It's in syndication. It's actually available on about 25 or 30 radio stations.
Wow.
And then it's also available in multiple places around the internet. It's called Thriving Entrepreneur. Just the first week of December of last year was our 8-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We've had guests on there, all the way from multi-billionaires to, actually children even have been on the show with me. My granddaughter, in fact, was one of the ones that was on there. Also at 8, she was an international best-selling author, just as a shameless promotion for her. And she's like 13 now. So, that was a few years ago, but, she probably will hate me that I brought that up, but, and we've had everywhere in between. We talk to people about their life and business. And being a thriving entrepreneur is really just about managing, yes, possibly the business you have, but also all of us are an entrepreneur in the fact that we are the CEO of the business of our life.
Absolutely. I like that. So if anybody was to walk up to you today and say, Steve, I need some advice, whether it's starting a business, writing a book, wanting to be a radio show host, business coach, what advice would you give them?
Follow your passion. All of us have a tendency to get distracted by trends, by shiny baubles that look cool. I mean, they probably are, and may make a ton of money short term. But when you are in the heart and soul and core of who you are, what makes you tick, that's what's going to get you through the hard times. Business will and does have its ups, but it also has its downs. And there are days when you're just like, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this? And it's that you're doing something that is the core of who you are that carries you through those moments. If you're just chasing a trend and that trend has crashed and burned, like if you were an expert at any one of the social medias that doesn't even exist anymore,
right?
Or, you were really great at Yahoo groups,
Wow.
Most people
taking
are
us back.
Did they have groups, right? Or you were a MySpace expert,
Right.
Back in the day, you probably made a ton of money on that. But now, if you were still banging the drum of why MySpace is really the place you should still have your social media, you're probably not going to get any clients, but if you understand that what you liked about MySpace was, say, for example, the real sense of community that you felt there, that is for the first time a place that you felt like you had a home in the whole wide world. Now, see, that's a passion, and that's something that you can latch a hold of and can go with you through whether you're, 8 years old or you're 80 years old and on through your life, because it's the core of who you are.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Love that. It's important because we do hear and see that's all you hear about, with all the new, if it's not about TikTok, it's about something else, it's about Meta. It's, there's all these social media platforms that people are just overzealous about. They really, really love their social media, but at the same time, it is ruining a lot of people's lives because they're looking through other people's lenses. They're not truly seeing who they are and really understanding, like you said, what is your passion? What is it about that you truly is driven for you every day versus what you actually are seeing everybody else doing. So I like, what you just said. And I think it's important that once people, like I said, understand, like I said earlier, if you trust the journey you're on and you know who you are, that makes life so much simpler and also gives you the joy that you deserve to have as you're going through this process. So, Steve, we are definitely getting down to the end and to the wire of this conversation, which I could talk to you for hours. I just love your conversation. But could you please tell everybody, if there's something you'd like to share about what you may have coming out soon or what's going on now, and also share how they can reach you?
Absolutely. So I made it really easy for everybody. I gave you a free gift.
Uh-oh.
We all like getting free gifts.
If
you go to ongoingwealthguide.com, that's ongoingwealthguide.com. There's a free gift for you there. It's a 5-step program. I promise you it's not 110 pages. It's just a page and a half. But it walks you through how you can really, truly create abundance in your life. Included in that actually is a link to my signature Write Your Bestseller in 1 Hour workshop. Mm-hmm. So you could, technically write your whole entire book just from that. I know lots of people that have, but it's going to help you really know how to be able to ongoingly generate abundance in your own life. Mm-hmm. And then at the checkout of that, when you get to the thank you page, because that's a free gift, there's actually a link there that will allow you to book 15-minute call with me, and we can talk about your life, your business, your marketing, anything I can do to help you out. That's your 15 minutes, and I'm here to help.
Awesome. Well, again, I really, truly appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day and hanging out with me and telling us a little bit more about who you are and what you have and provide to the table, and give everybody the opportunity to elevate themselves in the way that they best know how to, by obviously just using your voice and what's inside of you. So again, I appreciate you coming on with me. It has been such a pleasure to talk with you, sir.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. So, all right, you guys, before we close tonight's show, I just hope you truly enjoyed and learned a lot from the best-selling author, entrepreneur, business coach, minister, radio show host, Steve Kidd. It has been a great conversation learning about how to truly elevate who you are. And it's not just the word elevation. It's not just about talking about the success of being, elevated in that way. It's really, truly about what's inside of you. So like I always tell people, what are you ready for? Are you ready? Are you determined? Are you looking for that help, that helping hand that we can guide you in the right direction? Reach out to me at Kimberly at WSBILLC@gmail.com, and let's have that chat. Let's talk about those steps that we need to take to get you to turn those dreams into goals. And of course, if you want more of your resource for success, monetary donations to support the podcast are now accepted on Cash App, PayPal, Good Pods, Tip Jar, or you can go directly to the website at www.wsbillc.com. And again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We'll be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.